I'm excited to be with you all. My name's Lance Brown, and I was with you last week. If you weren't here, you obviously have come because you didn't know I was going to be here. And so, but anyway, I'm excited to be here. Phil's already talked about Atoma. I call this Opportunity or Regret Sunday. You still have an opportunity to sign up. Next Sunday, you will have only regret. All right? Enough said. Okay, there you go. So, but get signed up for Atoma. It is going to be a huge, huge weekend next weekend. Two more public service announcements real quick. One, we are, if you weren't here last week, I shared that we're doing a series on the home, and today we're doing the 10 Commandments for every man. And some of the men in the room that didn't know that are like, where is the exit? And you're going to be like that commercial, you're going to be bear crawling out of here, but that's okay. And then next week, we don't tell the women, the ladies to do anything, so we're doing the 10 suggestions for every lady. Amen. And so I'm not dumb now. And, but what I will say is this. We will be covering, I'll keep it PG-13. Some of the church staff panic because I tend to say things as they are and I get in trouble sometimes. It will be PG-13, but that we will be covering adult kind of issues in marriage at certain points in the service, which now that's piqued the men's interest in the room. And they're like, well, maybe I'll stay around, hear this, you know. And so, but anyway, just that. So then the last thing I'll say is this. I realize not everybody in here is married. We have singles in the room. We have some that singles that haven't been married. We have some singles who have been married and are divorced. So let me speak to those two right there. So singles who have not been married, you're like, why am I here? Why would I come next week? Well, here's what I would say to you. This is also for you because for you men in the room, as I tell my football players at Vanderbilt, for you single young men in the room, you cannot find or you cannot get that great girl. You can't find that great girl without being a godly man. And so these are going to be some things that a godly man should look like. And so you start being that kind of guy and you'll find that kind of girl. And then for the ladies in the room, as I tell my daughter, the young ladies in the room who haven't been married, quit settling. Quit settling. All right, I'll get... My wife sometimes goes, why are you so angry? But I get angry about certain things. But quit settling. Here are some things you should be looking for in a man. And don't settle. You really think that God can't give you everything? But you continue to serve him. And those of you that are single and you've been married, but you're saying you've come out of a divorce, what I want you to hear is this. God will restore the years the locust has eaten. In Joel. God, if he's anything, he's a God of second chances. So you work on you, whatever part you had to play and whatever has occurred, but you work on you, and there'll be some things you'll be like, man, I wish I'd done that the first time. Well, God's going to give you a second time. And so just trust that and make note of that. And so there you go. There's my public service announcements. So we're going to jump into the 10 Commandments, and we'll just jump right in. And the first one is this. Men, you don't have to worry about taking notes. The wives in the room are taking notes. Put it in a PDF file, and you'll receive emails, multiple ones, as the week goes on. So men, just enjoy, all right? I assure you, women will be feverishly doing this. All right, the first one, first commandment, keep the flowers fresh. Keep the flowers fresh. What in the world do I mean by that? One of the greatest needs of a woman is to be romanced. When I do pre-marriage counseling, really at any stage, pre-marriage counseling all the way to meeting with guys that are my age and their marriage is struggling, one of the things I'll say at some point is, I'll look at him and I know his wife, and looking around the room at the men in the room, this is true for every one of y'all, how did you ever even get the woman you have, all right? I mean, just looking at you, I mean, most of you look like you've been hit by a truck, all right? And so, but listen, it's going to get worse. You think that was bad. All right, so, but listen. So you've been kind of blessed here. So you did something to win her heart at some point. And so you continue to do those things to keep her heart. So you did romance, you did kind of this courtship and whatever, and then you for some reason we put a ring on our finger and we think, oh, well, I won, kind of deal. That's the mindset of a man. It's like we've been on a wild game hunt, and we just come back, and And, well, I won, and then we go out and conquer the world. No, it's not that at all. You continue to romance. You continue to keep the flowers fresh. We're guilty of this as men. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, we'll just kind of back a truck up of flowers and chocolate and think we've done our duty for the year. And the reality is that you would have never won her heart if that had been your mindset. It has to be this ongoing thing. And then I hear this from men. Well, I'm not really good at that romance thing. That's not really my thing. That's not really what men do. Well, I would say this to you. In history, not all, but a lot of our greatest poetry, our greatest art, and when I say poetry, it's more than roses are red and violets are blue. I'm talking a little bit deeper than that. But anyway, some of the greatest stuff is done by men. God has put that in you. That's an excuse. That's a cop-out. He has put that in you. He has given you that creativity, and our culture's kind of suppressed it a little bit. But I'm going to do a shameless little plug here in just a second. A friend of mine for years, a guy named Kurt Campbell, he and I for about 20 years have competed in romancing our wives. Now, I'm romancing mine, he's romancing his. I know how the bridge thinks. You people are sick. But we've competed in that. And last summer he came to me and he said, man, this is a struggle for men. Like I think some men want to do it, but they don't know what to do and all those kind of things. He said, what if we kind of put something together and every week men, if they signed up and did this, that they would get a weekly, like a video from us that we would put together and just be a simple, it's not rocket science, but just a simple idea that week that they could execute themselves and show how they intentionally love and romance their wives. So I'm going to show you a sample of that, just shamelessly plugging this. It is what it is. But I could give you a book or whatever, but I'd rather show you this. I think this is pretty cool.
Simple but effective. All it takes is a sticky note, a pen, and a little bit of creativity. Write a sticky note, quick short message to your wife, and stick it on her steering wheel during the night or before you leave for work in the morning. So the first thing she sees tomorrow when she gets in the car is a note reminding her of how much you love her. Cash it in.
Doing it. We're going to compete. I love my hands on you.
Wow. Okay. I'm full of gas when I'm with you.
Full of
Marcus. Gas. Drive me wild.
Last round.
He's so talky. We're done. He's showing off now. He's just showing off.
I'm loving my wife.
Maybe I should have said wild. Crazy. She could read that either way. She'll get the message.
Hop like a bunny, man.
It's kind of my best side. Okay.
Don't want her to know. Love your wife. All right, so that's a little thing we're doing, and if you want to sign up for that, loveyourwife.net. All the women in the room are immediately right now on their mobiles going to that site, signing their husbands up. It would be more effective if the men signed up, actually, ladies. Like this afternoon, hey, darling, I bought you a little something. I signed you up for this deal. But nonetheless, the point of that is it's not rocket science. That's pretty easy, but it's just some simple coaching for us men that I think we need at times. And the other thing, every time I watch that, I'm like, when did that bald spot come up on my head? I'm going to start spray painting that. All right, we got to move. We're going to go faster with the rest of them. Here we go. Number 2 commandments, you never win. And I forgot to read this verse in the first service, but in 1 Peter 3:7, it says this: husbands, in the same way, live with your wives with an understanding of their weaker nature, yet showing them honor as co-heirs of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. That weaker nature, some translation says weaker vessel. That is not saying that they are less than us or that they're not as strong as us. and if you really look at that, it's I don't have time to go into the details of this, but it's really like a fine china. When Amy and I got married, she registered all this stuff, and we started getting all this china. And I was like, what in the world? We've used that maybe twice in our marriage, but it's this special stuff. I mean, it's fine china. It's special. And men, that's how our wives are to be treated. They're being treated with this high honor and to be treated in such a way. But here's the deal. You never win. And what I mean by that is many of us, when we get into conflict, we go for the victory. In marriage, you don't go for the victory. You go for the compromise. You go for the center of the relationship. You go where there's give and take both ways. Men, we tend to, and I'm talking fast, listen fast. Men, we tend to raise our voice. We tend to bow up. We tend to get all bad, and we can win some fights. We can win some conflicts. But what I try to ask men is, when you've done that, as you feel really good about what you've done, as you're walking out, look over your shoulder and tell me what you really won. Because what you did, actually, is you took the heart of the one God gave you and you've wounded it. There's no victory in that. And so you have this mindset of you don't win. I'm going to rapid fire some things. A guy named Tommy Nelson that I have valued for years when it comes to marriage and his stuff on Song of Solomon. I'm going to give you some of the stuff that Tommy talks about. So here is real rapid fire when it comes to don'ts. Don't do these things in communicating. And this goes for both sides, honestly. But here we go. Don't speak harshly. Okay? Don't speak harshly. Don't confront your mate publicly. Don't confront in front of the kids. That creates an unhealthy home. Don't use the kids. Don't turn and go, doesn't mom do that? Am I right? Doesn't mom do that? Don't do that. All right? Don't say things like you never or you always. Those extremes of you never and you always immediately creates defense. If somebody said to you, you never, wait a minute now, never? So you've created defense. Don't get, and this might be more for the ladies in the room, honestly, don't get historical. I didn't say hysterical, I said historical. You're acting just like you did back in 98. And you remember we talked about this. I thought I'd already taught you about this. So don't get historical. Don't raise your voice. You raise your voice, then she raises your voice, then you raise your voice, and all of a sudden you're both up here. Nothing's happening up here. Nothing's happening. You're just yelling. There's nothing good happening there. All right? Don't call names. What are you in elementary school? Don't call names. Don't mention family. Men, let me give you, if you really want to see Jesus immediately, then look at your wife and go, you're acting just like your mother. That'll be the last word. You'll see stars and then you'll see God. All right? It'll be over. Don't be that dumb, I know you've thought it, but don't say it. All right. I already said don't win, and then don't condescend or don't demean. Don't talk down. You don't like that? Don't do that. So there's just some quick kind of things there. Let's move to the next one. Here's where we go PG-13. Number 3, sex has nothing to do with you. This is shocking some men in the room. Well, it might be true for you, Lance, but it ain't true for me. I realize many of you think you're Conan the Barbarian and all that, all right, and you're just amazing. But sex has nothing to do with you. What God, that is a great gift that God has given a married couple, all right? Notice I said married couple. It's a great gift God's given, recreation and procreation, all right? Amen, all right? Or whichever one you want to go with. Y'all will catch that later. But anyway, it's a great gift. There's no doubt. But understand, it's about this give and take. It's about being other-minded. And for a lady, it is very emotional. It is very trusting. It is literally very surrendering. There has to be this connection. For men, all we have to do is be naked, all right? That we don't care. And so, it's just a reality of who we are. I'm just being honest. But the reality is there's more to it. It can be very just physical for us, but there's so much more involved there. And so if you, as a man, are not serving, and not connecting, not building trust, and then you just show up and expect that, let me tell you something, that's not what it is. And I'm fixing to get angry a little bit. I deal with young men coming to college who my generation and maybe a generation under me have been raising some young men to define manhood by sex. That they begun to define manhood by how many girls they can be with. That does not define a man. My dog can have sex, does not make my dog a man. That is not manhood. And yet we bring that sometimes into marriage, and we think that's part of being a man, and all we really are is being selfish because we've done nothing to connect on any other level, but we're expecting that. And so we're very selfish. I'm going to be honest, if that's you, you're a selfish dog. I mean, I'm just being real, taking the gloves off right out of the gate. And in essence, it isn't about you. It's about the two of you. And when you begin, men, I know it's a stretch. It might be hard for some of you, but when you begin to invest emotionally, not just talking about sports and weather and the kids, but investing emotionally in building trust, that intimacy will even get better. All right? I'll just leave it at that for you to work on, okay? But nonetheless, it will. Where are we at? Number 4. Whew, we got through 3. Y'all are okay. Okay. Number 4, you better meet her needs or someone else will. You better meet her needs or someone else will. A book that Amy and I read early on in our marriage, His Needs, Her Needs. I believe the last name, the author is Harley, I believe. But His Needs, Her Needs. And in there, he was a counselor who had observed for many years that there were 5 basic main needs of a man, 5 basic needs of a woman. And his thesis was basically, you work on those, each of you work on the needs of the other person, and you'll have a healthy marriage. You'll protect your marriage from outside temptations. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Here's a danger, though, for us men. And that is, you give a man a list of 5 things or 10 things, most of us are task-oriented. And so we'll just start treating it like a task. Yep, did that. Yep. And we'll begin to treat our marriage and our wives like a task. And hear me, they're not a task, they're a treasure. You understand the difference? They're not a task, they're a treasure. So you meet the needs of your spouse because they're a treasure. Because of what we talked about last week, it should be coming from your heart, not your head. It should be coming from your heart. And you don't treat it as a to-do list. You treat it as I get to-do list. I get to serve. I get to do those things. But they should be better because they're married to you. And you should be, you better meet their needs or someone else will is what I meant to say. Sorry. And then here's the next one, number 5. We're moving pretty quick now. See how we're picking up speed? Looks attract us, but our character keeps us. Looks attract us, but our character keeps us. I'm sorry, men, but as I look around the room, not many of you look as good as you did when you got married, all right? I, however, am just as, unbelievable, except for this bald spot that's come up out of nowhere. But here's the deal. Our wedding day, I do all these weddings of my former athletes and stuff, and it's honestly, and then I'll see some of them years later, that's the best they look. That day, they peaked right there at that moment. Boom. They just peaked. Ken and Barbie met right there at the altar, and it was Homer Simpson heading out. But anyway, they peaked. All right, you know what I'm saying? They peaked right there. So the looks attract. I remember sophomore at Belmont, I'm sitting in the back of psychology class because I was an academic overachiever. And I remember this freshman basketball player coming in. And I'll never forget. That is the prettiest girl I've ever seen. Looks attract. But then I began to find out about her character and how she loved the Lord and what she was trying to do to be Christ on her basketball team. And it just went to another level for me. And I kind of began to stalk her, and it made her nervous. And she started dating this other guy. And this is part of our story. She started dating this other guy. They got engaged. I had him killed. And so now we're married. And I've checked law. I'm okay. It's too far gone. They can't do anything to me now. And some of y'all are leaving. Did he really have him killed? And so, no, I didn't. All right. So, but nonetheless, the looks attracted us, but the character keeps us. Let me put it this way. If marriage is all about looks, then who should have the greatest marriages? Hollywood. Who has the worst marriages? Hollywood. It's not about looks. I'm all about getting that fitness membership and going to, doing whatever you got to do. But honestly, and that's important for your health and to look good for your spouse. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look good. But if we're not developing the inside, the way couples make it to that 50 and 60 year mark is not because, you ever look at a couple that's been married 50, 60 years, none of you go, man, look, they are smoking hot. I mean, you don't do, that's not what you do. But you look at them, you begin to ask them questions, and you go, wow. First, listen, Christ stayed in the center of their relationship all the way through. Second, each one of them continued to grow in their personal walk with Christ and continue to develop their character. So looks will not sustain a marriage. They won't. But character will. So looks attract, but character keeps us. Here's the next one, number 6. This isn't necessarily a command, but I'm doing this, so I don't care what you say. 3 things every man needs to know to build a relationship. Here you go. You need time. You need to spend time. Now, this will be in your marriage. This will be with your kids. In a relationship, time and cultivation, in any relationship, time and cultivation. Hanging out. And when I say cultivation, it's not sports and weather. It's really talking. It's really digging in there and cultivating it. And then restraint. For those of you all that aren't married, there's a physical restraint to that relationship. That you're restraining and waiting. Because, hear me, you don't want your honeymoon night to be business as usual. And so you restrain. Inside of marriage, there are times and seasons of time, the kids are little, it's crazy, both of you might be working, and mama is just exhausted. Men don't always understand that when it comes to intimacy. We can be in a coma, all right, and suddenly revive to have a moment, all right? We don't understand. Pneumonia, flu, it doesn't matter. I mean, we can, and we milk sickness, men, all right? The ladies in the room know we'll milk it. But if all of a sudden she decided she was in the mood, we're healed, all right? We have been risen, right? And so nonetheless, but here's the deal. There's times that she's just not ready to do those things, and there's a restraint to that. In the early years of my marriage, I didn't always understand that. I felt like she was being selfish, or I was being selfish. And so we understand those things. Build the time, build the cultivation, and let that relationship grow. Here's some other communication things. I think they'll be up on the screen. We'll fire through them really quick. How do you build in that cultivation into a relationship? You listen with your face. Put your phones down. You listen with your face. Don't reason with your wife. Some of you have been so dumb. Don't reason with your wife. There is a vortex. I know no woman in here has ever taken their husband to this vortex, and of course my wife, of course, never has. But there's a vortex that is full of illogical hormones that I've heard women take men to, and men sometimes never return from that vortex. Don't try to reason. Listen. Many times, ladies, y'all know what the issue is. You know what the problem is. You just want us to listen. And we're so wired to give answers, and then disaster happens. Just listen. Don't argue. That's another one. Don't interrupt. I do that a lot. I'm a talker. Probably shocks y'all. I'm a talker. I interrupt Amy a lot. This is not a morning where I'm pointing fingers at y'all. We're doing this together. I interrupt. Don't stomp out the door. That's not going to do anything. Don't vent your spleen to others. Don't go run to your buddies or ladies, to your gals. Don't go to mom and dad and vent your spleen about what's going on, because you'll eventually hopefully fix that, but the folks you've vented your spleen to are ready to kill your spouse. You know, they're like angry, and they never got to make up. You keep that stuff. You work there. Go sit down with a Christian counselor. Come see somebody on staff at the church. But don't just go out there and spew stuff all over the street about what's going on. And then don't use rude body language. 80% of communication's nonverbal. You cross your arms, I'm really done. I don't want to talk anymore. I made the mistake once. My wife was talking, and I don't know what possessed. I just lost my mind. The devil entered me. And I literally did like this. Yeah, I did. And I don't know if y'all have ever noticed, but I walk with a little bit of a limp. It happened shortly after that. All right, so anyway, don't do that. See, I'm being honest with y'all. I'm telling y'all, I'm with you. All right, here we go. The women in the room, oh, I don't think so. All right, so Ephesians 5 chapter, Ephesians 5:28. Ephesians 5:28. It says, in the same way, husbands are to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hates his own flesh, but provides and cares for it, just as Christ does for the church. Number 7 is tenderness is the greatest need of a woman. Tenderness is the greatest need of a woman. Men, we need to be tender. My daughters know they're the princesses, but mama's a queen. The princesses want to go to Outback. Mama wants to go to Jonathan's Grill. Load up, we're going to Jonathan's Grill, all right? She's the queen. The princesses are going to be leaving. The queen's with me forever. And I treat her in that way. I open doors for her. To the best of my ability, I never come into a room in front of her. I open the door and usher the queen into the room. Just simple old school chivalry. I mean, men, why are we not teaching our sons some of these things? Why do we have boys walking around who aren't opening doors for ladies and picking up trays in the cafeteria at school and serving? Why do we have boys, I'm getting mad again, why do we have boys, men, that we're letting them text girls for a date instead of calling them? What are we doing? What are we doing? Okay, I'm done. All right, there. See, I got violent. I'm sorry. I'm trying to calm myself. All right, but here's the deal. We treat ladies with tenderness. Number 8, I'm behind. I got to move faster. Your wife should be a better woman because she's married to you. Your wife should be a better woman because she's married to you. Encourage her to dream. You young couples, you have that time. Sometimes it might be Saturday morning. If you don't have kids yet, you're sleeping in a little bit. And I remember Amy would lay her head on my shoulder, and I asked her, "Hun, let's dream. What do you want to do? Is there a work you want to do? Is there a place you want to see? What do you want to do?" And then as we've gotten older, we still have those conversations from time to time, and it's like, what's left? What have we not done that you want to do? And you let her dream, and you talk about, how can I help you reach your dreams? How can I help us do the things we want to do? And you help her to be a better woman. If you're not leading spiritually, get in the game, man. Get in the game. I got too many young men that show up and their grandmamas and their mamas drug them to church while daddy went and fished and played golf. And somehow that dad thinks that young man's going to be different than he was. No, he's going to be just like you or worse. And so the reality is you need to set some of that stuff down and get to church and communicate to your son that this is important. And take the lead. It not just attending church, not just getting in a small group, but maybe reading your Bible, praying. Begin to take some initiative. We have far too long, sounds chauvinistic, but for far too long, we have abdicated the throne of leadership spiritually to the women, and they've done a phenomenal job. But men, that's not helping the boys in our world. That's not helping them. Ladies, y'all have incredible. I was raised by a single mom, not dogging anything, but we need some men with a backbone to step up and say, no, I'm going to take my boy right here and lead him. All right? We got to keep going. Don't do that. All right. So number 9, here we go. Number 9, men who go to crosses are the kind of men that love their wives correctly. It's about sacrifice. It's not about us. It's not about you. It's about setting some things down. Well, I want to go do that. Well, you know what? When you're single, you get to go do whatever you want to do. You've made a commitment to another person, and then you've had these other little humans. You got to sacrifice. You got to lay down some things. That means you have to be some kind of martyr and never get to have fun. No, I get to go hang out with my buddies and do things here or there, but I don't get to do that every time I want to because I understand I've got responsibilities. And there's sacrifices. Nobody's asking you to go on top of a hill and die on a cross, but they are asking you to give up some things that you might want to do in the moment because you need to be home. You need to be there. You need to be investing. So you literally do that. And then the last one is one that is very biblical, and that is, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Now, I understand in a room this size, any room, regardless of size, we're going to touch some nerves with that one. That there's some wounds in the room. And so, again, God will restore the years the locust has eaten. And for some of you, this point right here hurts. And I'm so sorry. But stay with me, because there's some other people in the room that need to hear this so they don't have that hurt. Because here's the deal. You got people who have in here that come out of an affair, people who they're in an affair hoping not to get caught. There's other people that are sitting there going, no, I'll never do that. But thought about it. And so you got all that in there. Here's what I'm going to do. First is real quickly go through the 6 E's, the letter E, of how an affair happens. And then I'm going to be done. The first E is this. There's an elimination. That time and cultivation piece is gone. Or it's beginning to disappear. You're not investing. And many times it's not because somebody else is in the picture. It's just something's happened to where you've grown apart. And that can be on both of you. I've been picking on the men today, but that can be on both of you that it's grown apart. And both of you got to own what you got to own right there. That's the embryo stage, elimination. I had lunch with a guy last week that several years ago, he took a job in another state, got an apartment, and Monday to Thursday, he was there working, and he'd come home on the weekends. He thought that'd be cool. Not cool. Go find another job. Because now, he's lost everything. Because he got a girlfriend. Let me tell you something. Sin will make you stupid, and I had lunch with it last week. And so elimination happens. And then there's an encounter. The enemy wants to break up Christian homes like none other. He doesn't care about the ones that aren't trying to live for God. That doesn't matter to him. He wants us. And so the enemy will bring an encounter. Workplace, but hey, hello, church. I don't know, I'm not going to give you the percentages, but you'd be amazed in the local body of Christ how it happens. So there's an encounter. Somebody comes across our path. Then there's an enjoyment of that encounter. We begin to manipulate and find ways to be around that other person. There's an enjoyment of it. And then there's an expedition of just kind of, hey, you look nice in that dress today. Just kind of just see what might happen. So there's an expedition, and then there's an expression. I really like hanging out with you. I really like seeing you. And then all that's left is an experience, its own. And that's how it happens. And I've seen it. I've seen it close up in my own family. I've seen it in my own church. I've seen it. And it ain't pretty. But here's the problem. And I'll try to get through this. I didn't get through it very well in the first service. But men, I want to speak to you for just a minute. I understand affairs happen at both sides, but I just want to talk about us for a minute. Many times we live in the moment. We get selfish and we think, man, I'm going to do something for me right here. And we don't think it'll hurt just this once. And we kind of get in that moment and we don't think about the outcome. And the outcome right now is what I want us to think about. The outcome is what we need to think about. Because I have thought about this a time or two. Not that I've thought about having an affair with my wife. I've thought about what would happen if I did. What would the outcome be? Because the outcome, and again, I know there's some folks in here that this hurts, but understand there's some folks in here who need this. The outcome is a living room one day. Because it's going to come out. And there's a living room, and here's my family. And this is where I lose it. But the outcome, men, of a moment is a living room one day where you sit, I sit, and I look at that boy, and I said, son, I told you to be a man, and your daddy was a boy. And I got to sit in the living room and tell him that? I don't want to do that, y'all. I don't want to have that conversation with that boy. Or those 3 girls, to try to show them how to love their mama and to show them what a godly man should look like, and then to have to sit in the living room and say, don't marry a man like me. Don't do it. Run from me. I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to be in that living room. And Ah. To look at my bride, who I put this and said, I'm in. I'm giving you my heart, and you're giving me yours, and I'm in. And to look at her and say, I lied, I tricked you. And to look at her face, I can't go there. I can't go to that living room. I don't want to be there. We're going to close out. Josh is going to sing. And right where you're sitting, some of you are in the middle of something you need to get out of now. And some of you are close and you're flirting with it. And you better shut it down. Because that living room's real. And you don't want to be there. And I don't want you to be there either. But it has to start in here. It has to start with your heart. Let me pray for you. Lord, we talked about last week that we're not going to do anything unless we understand the why, unless it sources from our heart. And Lord, I've talked about the emotion of having to tell our family something that we've tragically failed. And Lord, that if we leave here and that was a good sermon and boy, I was challenged and man, I'm going to try to fix that, it's not going to happen. Some of us in here are trying to fix a massive blockage in our heart by taking aspirin. And Lord, right now, I pray in the name of Jesus that they will let you cut their chest open and fix that heart. There's some men in this room that have so much arrogance and pride. Lord, I pray that you break them so that you can restore them. Lord, you're the only one that can do this kind of stuff. Nobody else can. I pray we go to the cross so we don't have to go to that living room. We love you. Blows our mind how much you love us. In Christ's name we pray.